Now, this is the panel you probably all have been waiting for. We have a moderator, a founder, Mr. Zinon Tony G. Antanas Guoga, member of European Parliament, and a serial entrepreneur. He needs little introduction. And then we have, I'd like to call upon our panelists, Ms. Arminta Saladžienė. She's the Vice President and Head of Securities Services at Nasdaq. Thank you for joining us. We also have Mr. Kemball Cook, who is a Business Development Lead at Qadre. Thank you for joining us. We have Mantas Katinas. He's last year's hero who attracted a lot of companies to Lithuania. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We have our partner and our esteemed guest, Mr. Wong. He's president of the NEM Foundation. Thank you for coming back to Vilnius. I hope you're going to be a regular guest here at the Blockchain Center. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we have also Mr. Daniel Barr, who's the chairman and founder of bitfwd. Thank you. And last but not least, we also have Mr. Thomas Sofinson, who's you already heard, is the co-founder of 2030 and Pillar Project. So, Tony, over to you.
It's great to have this discussion, and I'd probably like to open up with Arminta, because Nasdaq is a massive company with their massive offices and here in Lithuania. You've created so many jobs, and we'd love to know what you think is going on with blockchain over at Nasdaq.
Thank you, Antanas, and good afternoon, everyone. I feel very energized, to see such an engaged audience, and absolutely applaud to the team, yourself and Paulius and others for, inviting and getting so many guests to come over. But at the same, it's also really a humbling experience, I can tell you, given the level of expertise and knowledge in the room. So back to your question. Nasdaq is very much engaged with blockchain and DLT. We started experimenting together with our partners and business and technology clients some years ago, and now see the beginnings of a shift, from validating technology into real deployment and production, and also some commercialization cases. So, as probably most of you know, we operate and we are part of the financial markets. So how do we approach and look for the use cases? First of all, we actually look at the pain points in the existing value chain, where we have many intermediaries, where we have a lot of manual processing, where we have complex workflows which drive cost and risk. And do we see the merits of the DLT, which can help us address those pain points? Why I think it's also good really to start with these spaces, because you are then in a much better position to attract collaboration, and interest of the ecosystem, because I think blockchain is very much about collaboration and about what you can do in partnership. So just to share a few examples, and now I think when we turn back a little bit and see our journey in the past, 3 years, I would say it's also possible to see that, we are building up the capabilities. So they've become kind of layered, it's like building a house. So the first use case, which we had and started with POC, MVP, and then finally got into production, is called Nasdaq Private Market. And it's deployed in San Francisco, in the US. The market for private shares, for private company shares, pre-IPO, or maybe some that would never IPO, actually has been really pen and paper based, or at best spreadsheet based. And even the fundraising was run on the spreadsheet and very inefficient. Notary involved, legal involved, books involved. So the DLT was applied and powered the platform that Nasdaq created called Link. Basically to use blockchain to do immutable record keeping for those shares, and also record any movements in the ownership of the shares. So that is in production. Now, last year we partnered with Citi to create an integrated payment solution on blockchain. So basically got cash into the private market, and used blockchain to power really straight through payment processing. Then another use case, just to mention, actually a very recent one, in partnership with our technology client, Swiss Exchange 6. We created a POC for the issuance, settlement, and DVP settlement solution for structured products. And this has now been very successfully tested actually with the community, with the market participants. So let's see what the next steps will be. So just to wind back a little bit, record keeping of the shares, trading, issuance, settlement, we're kind of building up, the parts of the value chain. And now in January, we started a project together with South African Central Securities Depository Straight. And we'll be building a proxy voting solution for the South African market, which actually will be based on the POC we did in Estonia with our issuers and clients there. So I have more, but I will stop, not to use all the airtime.
Arminta, thank you very much. You didn't tell us how massive you are in Lithuania. It's like your headquarters. Tell us how many people, how many square meters. I mean, we're so blessed to have people like you here in Lithuania who are driving some of the biggest and probably one of the biggest companies in the world to Vilnius to make the headquarters. It's amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Very kind words. So actually Nasdaq is not really a big company in terms of the number of employees. We have like 5,000 employees globally, but of course it's an iconic brand, which is known worldwide, and very much we attribute ourselves to fintech. So sorry guys, the startuppers and all the disruptors, if you don't like us to be fintech, but we think we have the fintech mindset and the ambition. And we're not afraid, actually, to even transform the businesses we are in and ride on the mega trends. Nasdaq in Vilnius has now 350 people. So one of the global technology and business competence centers is here. It's the second largest office in Europe after Stockholm, and third largest actually in the world for Nasdaq, so really significant. We run European markets out of Vilnius, actually across all asset classes, equities, derivatives, commodities, fixed income, and have a lot of competences here. So sometimes when JP or Goldman Sachs need interaction with Nasdaq European markets, and they call or email our staff, they probably few realize that they are talking to someone based in Vilnius. And then we also have developers and testers and engineers, so really a big technology team, including a small but very creative and bright blockchain team. So the projects that I mentioned, for example, like let's take Citi payment solution. So the bigger share of the development work, and also actually the tasks that were related to deploying it in the cloud and resolving some of the real issues, were done by Lithuanian engineers based in our office. And 6 project, again, the issuance and settlement of the structured products for the Swiss market. Again, Vilnius team very much involved. and part of the solution. And now the guys just got back from South Africa, so straight project again.
Fantastic. Well, we're blessed to have you because there's so many people now we can hire for Lithuanian startups, right? You're teaching them the ways of the world, and then now they're ready to do Lithuanian projects. Bigger than Nasdaq, hopefully, but you're doing an amazing job, right?
Anything for the better good, and shared good, of course.
Thank you so much for coming, and I know you're not feeling great, so we really appreciate your time and all your efforts that you do. Another thing that everyone is always concerned about is security, right? Things go wrong. We just had a massive incident 2 days ago or yesterday with some exchange in Japan that went a little bit silly. But things happen, right, all around the world, and it's been happening for years. Thefts, hacks, frauds. Blockchain has a lot of interesting aspects that protects people from that, or at least we can see a chain. And we have our foremost expert here in Ashley, who will give us all the benefits of the blockchain and how we're all going to be very safe and secure.
Oh, hello? There you go.
Yeah.
So no small feat, just to explain all the benefits of blockchain in security. But yeah, happy to go ahead. So I guess in the 21st century, we're ever increasingly living in a digital age. So we transfer value, we kind of socialize, and a lot of the work we do is actually digital. It's all online, or at least on servers at our work. But actually, kind of our security hasn't really caught up with this, as we've seen from the crazy amounts of hacks that we're seeing, both in the cryptocurrency world, but also in just the data service world. And now we're even seeing it in the hardware world with the new Intel hack, where you can bleed out memory. So we really need our technology that we're using to catch up to the way we're living. It's all well and good having, we've got great bricks and mortar steel safes that can store our physical documents, but we need something for the 21st century that's comparable to how we live. And so kind of really going off what has already been said here today with the great work that Pillar's doing around protecting individuals' identity, but I guess just to take a step back and to think about how does blockchain actually do that, realistically it can give you this, using the simple encryption methods, so like using public key infrastructures and using the encryption like SHA-256, which is pretty standard with Bitcoin. You can encrypt data, but the real benefit comes when you can give access to decrypt data. So you can self-syndicate all your data. I can hold all the data that's pertinent to me, as is kind of shown by the Pillar platform, which looks great. But then say when my bank wants to check that I actually live where I say I live, or that I earn what I say I earn, they can request timed access to that data for a set period of time, which is one great benefit of a blockchain. And essentially you're moving from this world where you have kind of, in a way, the old world is really the decentralized world, because you've got all these decentralized databases, Excel spreadsheets, servers that aren't really talking to each other, because there isn't the infrastructure to allow them to talk to each other in a trusted way. But with blockchain, you've kind of got this, obviously we call it is the decentralized ledger, but in a way you can create a safe centralized database whereby you can have multiple parties, multiple nodes, all speaking the same language, all speaking on the same database, but in a safe way. And then, so just to kind of go on more slightly, really an application of blockchain is kind of really only useful in a few cases. I think we've seen, maybe right now, you can see a lot of hype around blockchain, as you've seen with the Long Island iced tea company, who changed their name to the Long Blockchain Company, and their shares rose 427%. And they were going to buy a mining rig, and they've now backed out of that. And the SEC at Davos recently issued a warning saying, look, if you're just going to put blockchain on the front of your company ticket just to boost your shares, then I mean, we're going to come after you. It's a bit naughty. So I think a key part of all our jobs, but particularly my job working in the space, is making sure that the right use cases of blockchain are used and utilized. And realistically, it's where you've got multiple parties all working on the same data set, the same database, and you want them all to have kind of safe access, but whereby you can also see who's viewing what data and when and where they're seeing it. I was going to say, it was a great point earlier from, I think it was Sam, is it? Just saying that, with this ban in China on the ICO markets, we can actually start doing real work in blockchain. I think, again, a lot of the ICOs haven't really generated much value for investors, and some ICOs have been fraudulent. I think the real value in all this technology, for me personally, I think is in the underlying blockchain technology as opposed to the cryptocurrency. But I'm sure as a panel we can debate that.
Thank you very much for those insights. And I would like to introduce my good friend now, I would say, the president of the NEM Foundation, Wong, who has been a really massive supporter of Lithuania and even Lithuanian basketball. We have to really thank him, as it was the first move ever, I think, in crypto, where a basketball team, a professional, famous basketball team, was sponsored by a cryptocurrency. So I think there's a lot of very happy people, and the money that came in, over 400,000 euros, is a significant contribution. So definitely the people of Vilnius, the fans, are extremely grateful to you, and I can definitely relay that message. But apart from that, you're doing a lot of other great things with the NEM Foundation all over the world. But there's always challenges in business integration. Even in Vilnius, if we want to integrate so people could buy tickets, they could buy bus transport, the reality doesn't always move as fast as our dreams and imagination, especially mine, right? So we have to have dreams, right? We have to have goals, but the reality of things always takes us a step back. It's just like 2 steps forward and hopefully just 1 step backwards, and then we go forward. So, Honourable President, please tell us what you think, where the challenges are, where the future lays. How will the NEM Foundation propel the world forward?
2 steps forward, 1 step back. That sounds like a dancing step to me. Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think one of the biggest challenge that I face, and therefore the foundation faces, is that there's this issue, a two-pronged. One issue that is most important, that is hindering the progress of the development of the blockchain technology, is regulators. And the blurring distinction between the use of blockchain as a solution versus the use of blockchain to transact value. So, for example, if I were to implement a solution that uses, say, Oracle database, right? The regulators would not bother much about it. In fact, if you look at the Basel, lots of the Basel documents, nothing is mentioned about the database that's being used, like Oracle or Microsoft. But why do regulators pay so much attention to anyone using blockchain as a technology to drive the financial services? This is one thing where there is an acute lack of understanding of the use of blockchain technology to actually drive financial systems. And they often relate this to a crypto coin. It's tainted in a way. It's been used for money laundering, terrorism. But if you really look at it seriously, the amount of crypto coins out there is about $500 billion today. There are trillions of dollars that's floating out there that have more problems in terms of money laundering, terrorism, and whatnot. Why is there such a problem? It's a lack of understanding. It's a fear that has been put onto us for whatever reason. So this is the biggest hindrance that we have moving forward, empowering the financial industry. But if you look at it in what Arminta was saying, you know, I wrote a paper something like 1.5 years ago, and I did say that at the end of the day, if you use blockchain, this is a classic example of a good use case where it is very controversial as well as very radical. If you use blockchain as a solution to power up a stock exchange, you really do not need settlement, you do not need any share registry, CSD, and a host of intermediaries that are required today to sustain or to make up the ecosystem of current stock exchanges. And if you look at the history of the stock exchanges, it was developed more than 400 years ago, and it hasn't changed. The process didn't change other than making it electronic. But if you use blockchain technology, you don't need all those. It's a mindset shift. It's an entirely different paradigm altogether. And because of that, it is hard for us to change for many reasons. One is acceptance, coming to terms with it. Second is a lot of jobs, a lot of huge companies like the banks will lose a substantial portion in settlement, the brokers will be gone, a huge value chain would have been removed, and we are talking about an industry that goes into the $1 trillion. No one would want to change that. That's the reality of it, and that's the biggest hindrance. But if there's an Uberization of such an exchange, and the fact that such things, today the world is very much smaller than yesterday in as far as electronic transactions and things like that is concerned. So if it is an Uberization of such an industry where I could offer without limits and without bounds from one country to another country using the blockchain technology, this is going to change the world, and as far as stock exchange is concerned. And as far as settlement is concerned, payment settlement is concerned, it's the same issue that we are facing, hindrance, through regulators as well as existing players in the industry that are not ready to move forward. So again, it will require Uberization as well. When I mean Uberization, I mean smaller players that come on board that make use of the blockchain technology to drive the financial services. So apart from there, this is very skewed. You know, we have Thomas talking about protection of data. Again, we could use blockchain for a host of other industries where you do not need to be regulated. One of them is, for example, Internet of Things, where you can actually store raw data, proof of records. Records could be personal records or land registry, car registration, medical records, all sorts of records that you can actually put it onto the decentralized storage system that is powered by the blockchain technology, that is immutable, irreversible, and highly secure. And this is what we are talking about with, and one more thing, not just these features, but as well as it being very much more inexpensive compared to existing technologies. And this is one thing that's very compelling that will make us want to use the blockchain technology. And I'm not surprised that given its current state where it is not regulated, this will take precedence over blockchain as a financial service in time to come.
Thank you very much, Wong. Thank you for those insights. And we move over to Thomas Sofinson, who's a co-founder of the Pillar project. We're very thankful for your support of this blockchain center, and to have of so many of you present and even filming today. And also, I'm so excited to see such a successful project, such a successful support from the community that you received, and empowerment now to deliver. So I would like to find out from you, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities that you see over the course of this year for the blockchain industry and for your company in particular, especially the challenges and where could government, or what support would you want? How are you seeing things?
Anyone hear me? Good. So first of all, thank you so much, Tony, for this fantastic invitation here at the Blockchain Center. And you talked about you're a dreamer, so please don't stop to dream. Now to the challenges and opportunities. We, as entrepreneurs, we first and foremost see opportunities. Every challenge becomes an opportunity. I'll outline both with the tremendous innovation that will come from those blockchain technologies, and you know, Wong has mentioned a lot of innovation that will be done on the financial services, but we see a lot of in the energy. We talked about earlier in my presentation about the citizen service. The citizen service, what it is about? It's about connection between the public institution and the government to the citizen. What can be better than that, right? So all those technologies will be leveraged by blockchain, enabling more connection. You know, at the end of the day, what it is, it's trust, it's efficiency, right? It's transparency, and these are values today more and more that people, citizens, are not willing to give up. Are simply not willing to give up. So the world is going to be decentralized, and now the idea is how to make it work in existence with regulation, in existence to help also discuss with the regulators, because the regulators are not people that are want to destroy or want to necessarily put a show stop. So we need to have an open dialogue with the regulators and see how we can use those technologies to the benefit of the good, and at the same time making sure that those regulators, as my friend from NEM has just said, are not stopping this innovation, right? We cannot stop the innovation for the greater benefit of the entire society just because we don't want to change, right? So all these things are, for us, opportunities that we see that are going to change. From our perspective at Pillar, the biggest challenge will be the education part, right? More and more people about, you can actually do something about controlling your data, right? You can actually do something about it. There are solutions, and Pillar is coming up with solutions that will help it. And this is why Pillar has been set not only as a foundation, but we call ourselves a movement, right? So if you want to be part of that movement, if you want control of your data, and if data, as our people are saying, is the oil or the gold or whatever you want to call it of the 21st century, then you need to own it. You need to have it. It's yours. Why are we giving it up? Why are we still continuing to live in this framework of data, okay, that belongs to the past? So that's the challenge for us. The challenge is how to make it. It's a huge change. It's not going to be overnight, because the Pillar project is about changing the way that data is owned, consumed, exchanged, right? It's a significant change forward, and it's going to benefit all of us, right? So these are the challenges, but we see the benefits of this movement, and we see the enthusiasm everywhere we go, including here at Vilnius, about the ambition of the project and what we want to do, and everybody see, okay, well, that actually makes sense, to have everything belongs to me, and then I can interface with everything, and that you can actually leverage these fantastic decentralized technologies in a way that is really also provides safety and security.
Thank you very much for that insight. You know, just asking, what would you want if it was a single thing from regulators that you could wish for? And then you could say, well, which particular regulator, because there's a lot, right? What would be the number one on a wish list, bucket list for the blockchain industry? What would be the number one thing you would want done this year? Because as we heard today, and as we hear all the time, and I'm a proponent of it, and the European Commission just confirmed today that there's no imminent regulation of cryptocurrencies, which is very good guidance, and it makes Europe very attractive for everybody. That's a very, very strong signal we heard, you know, for anyone, for investors, for companies who want to set up in Europe. This is the place to come. Lithuania is the place to come, right? So any regulation, because usually what happens, and I'm not very experienced in politics, but I've had a little bit of a spell in it. What usually happens, there's good intentions, and people come through with a nice, package of new guidelines, and then what happens? Other guys who are not so friendly get on top of it, and then they mix it up, and then all of a sudden you have like a ban. Starting with good intentions, things go very badly. So the political process usually for regulation is quite tricky and tiresome, and usually doesn't work well for any industry so far. So, especially up-and-coming industry. So, maybe you do know the solution, and what should we regulate? How?
Well, it's not over the it's not the $1 million question. Today it's much more than that, right? Yes. One thing, if we have from the pillar side to ask the regulators is to work with us hand in hand, because a lot of us in the blockchain space, we understand that there are a lot of scams out there, and a lot of people are pretending and are jumping on this wagon, right, and are trying to profit from it. But there are actually a lot of people, and I see a lot of people are there participating in this industry that have genuine intentions and genuine way to help the world, advance and reap the benefit from the blockchain decentralization. So one thing from the regulator, please work with us. Don't push us. Don't push us. Don't say, let's stop this. Let's freeze that. Let's, talk to us. We have a lot to help you understand the new world, as you have also a way to help us understand how systems work. We also, sometimes we want to advance, but we're not so sure how to do it. This is a two-way street, and we can learn a lot from each other. That's really the first step. If we do that, then we're going to do great as an industry, and it will help a lot the world.
Thank you so much. And we're also very thankful to have such a great leader in Mantas Katinas, who's the CEO of Invest Lithuania. And I know his dream was also to be located here, so the Blockchain Center would love to have government involvement and regulator involvement, and people who can open doors and kick doors in and get things opened up and get permits that we need to operate. So people like you who are visionaries in our government level, people who are forward-looking, futuristic, positive, and working so hard and committing, when you could have a role probably paid 10, 20 times more than what you're getting now. So we're blessed to have Lithuanians such as yourself, obviously, and we would like to have your insights of where you see the future of blockchain, and how do you see it developing? Where will the source of the new evolution of it come from? Especially in the government areas and the areas that you work with, because you're dealing with companies all the time. You bring them in to feed our country with companies who come here, pay taxes, employ people, and ultimately pay pensions. So that's the only way we can get better pensions, is by having lots of people like you who bring businesses in and get things opened.
Thank you, Antanas. I think you're doing the same job as me, attracting foreign leaders around. Talking about blockchain, I think the important part to understand that when we're talking that the blockchain is just getting the middleman out, so a lot of the existing functions now in the world is still in the state level. So we still have a lot of the data and a lot of regulation which is still on the state level. So when we talk about innovation, if we want to create a very good ecosystem, we need to work together because a lot of data and things is still regulated by the states. And you can name any industry. When you just register your car, if you go to health insurance, if you just go to the doctor, a lot of things is still is related with the regulated areas around. So as an agency, we're constantly looking for a competitive advantage country could create. And recently, we recognized that one of the very good ideas for a country is to define the disruptive industries and to create a more flexible regulation ecosystem than the other countries have. So we're very lucky that the Lithuanian Central Bank was the first in Europe which understood that Lithuania could create a competitive advantage, and now we have very, very good advantages in this level. So in the last 12 months, Lithuania attracted 20 companies which is already working in Lithuania as a companies, and we have in double size the licenses that Lithuania is now giving for such companies. And when we're looking from which region these companies are coming, we recognize that most of them are coming from Asia and Israel. So this is not European, they're just trying to get into European Union. So Lithuanians as a small country always have the complex that we're too small. And that's a bad thinking because we are operating in the European Union, which is the almost 600 million, the richest society in the world. So we're saying that take a look at Singapore and take a learn from the bridge economy examples when you can create a tunnel for companies who want to work in the bigger markets, and Lithuania could do that. So naturally the fintech is one of the industries, but blockchain is a platform which creating a lot of other industries around. And after the regulation, what next is coming, we naturally see that you need to have a couple elements out of that. One of the competence of talents around who have some specific know-hows, because when you play with that, you create some new elements out of that. Another part is the actually technical infrastructure. So Lithuanian Central Bank is planning to launch LB Chain, which is the central bank operating blockchain platform, which will be playing with the technology and data around. And that's very important because if you have the talents and if you have modern regulation, that this technical platform is like API solutions for different companies just to play a bit with information and create some models. And after you achieve that level, when you have maybe 100 companies which are already operating, you already have the cluster which is fooling in itself. So I'm very happy for Blockchain Center. I think that's a very important part for our talent education, and I hope that from Lithuania, the governmental leaders will have more support. And I don't know why it's happening, but in Lithuania now it's the momentum of the motivational peoples in every level. You can meet here the university leaders around which are interested in blockchain and fintech. You can meet people from the politics, you can meet people from regulators, and they want to play with the disruptors. So that's very good time for us, and I'm happy that we met NEM Foundation, I think 1 year ago, and now we're sitting in a blockchain center. It was just an idea, and I cannot name you, but we already have a couple interesting ideas for next development, because we travel around the world and we see that other regions also interesting in Vilnius. I think in the next 12 months we have a couple good releases out of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mantas, and we're really blessed to have you here, really, so open to, and there's so many people, I guess, that we want to talk to you here who are visiting us from Asia and who want to do things in our country, and people like you do empower and create jobs. So it's great to have you, and keep up the good work. We do have one more speaker today, which is Daniel Barr, chairman and founder of the bitfwd, and that would be very interesting as as entrepreneurs and business people. What is the difference in mindset, right? We want to talk about mindset in blockchain and mindset in traditional businesses, because a lot of people, famous economists that I met, and they said, well, what is blockchain really solving? Do we need it? And this is like the #1 guy in the world. So it's like, maybe you can share us the difference in mindset there. That would be very, very interesting and insightful if you could.
Sure. So first of all, thanks for inviting me, and coming all the way from sunny Australia, I can enjoy a little bit of this nice weather. It's a very good question. What's the difference in the mindset? Because as we're all here tonight, we're all probably are believers in the decentralized future that we're going to enter in. And as Tomer said, like, the future is going to be decentralized. Now, basically, is how are we going to adapt and basically become a part of it rather than try to stop it or whatever. Now, probably bitfwd and the other activities that I've been involved in this last couple of years, we started being more heavily kind of involved in early 2016, at the time when you were talking to people about blockchain or decentralized applications and whatnot. People would usually look at you with a little bit of a strange eye. And the entire market cap, just like to give you a proportion, the entire market cap at the time was less than 10 billion or around that cap. And basically, as an entrepreneur, it was very, very interesting time to be in, let's put it that way. And after about a year of kind of doing small bits and stuff here and there, and like we're very heavily active in the university and grassroots kind of developer communities space, we landed a contract with one of Australia's largest retail banks, and then with other financial institutions there, and we were really, really happy that suddenly, like, a few, like, whatever nerds that are interested in blockchain suddenly can do stuff with, like, the big guys, right? And I have to say that, like, I'm really grateful for this experience, because I learned how things work in the real world, and until very recently we were working with those banks. And there is one thing, though, that is really constantly coming back, and that is the old world, so to speak, the world that is not really based on decentralized principles, or as we saw very nicely in Tomer's presentation, that it's all based on a user-server architecture, right? Like, it's never a mesh network kind of architecture. So this old world, particularly in this last 15-ish years, we've been kind of brainwashed to think that there's very, very limited set of business models that we can work with as entrepreneurs or as companies. And all those business models rely on basically a user bridging into something, and then someone hoarding the data and does a bunch of services and, like, abstracting the actual value chain. When we're looking at ventures in the decentralized world, one of the complete shifts in mindset that we all need to kind of have, both as entrepreneurs, as investors, and anyone on the ecosystem, is that you're no longer looking at a flow where there's, like, a user, a service provider, or a consumer for that matter. It's all kind of like stakeholders on the network, and how do you actually design a new game, a new kind of, it's a paradigm shift that, like, we're no longer looking at a system where, like, it's a traditional kind of transaction. Suddenly, like, that's the beauty of blockchains and cryptocurrencies, that we can actually design completely new models. Like, we can think of a product like Pillar that is a wallet, or like we're working in the same space, digital identity, on another project. And suddenly, if you have an incentivizing mechanism that you, as the one who's actually working on this project, you're not necessarily going to capitalize on that in the same sense. You're basically creating an ecosystem. So moving from this old centralized kind of thinking to an ecosystem thinking, this is probably the most new thing and, like, inspiring thing that I feel anyone with enough understanding of this industry should really take as a personal kind of mission to educate and involve more people in this kind of narrative. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's what the Blockchain Center will be doing, in fact, is meeting people, educating people, and empowering people to then deliver the world-changing opportunities that the center will create. So obviously, I think that's what we're learning today. It's all about decentralization. What does that mean for poor politicians? It's probably bike time, right? I mean, they're not going to be required too much longer. So I think that this is the way the world's going forward, right? And we're not going to change it. We might as well join the revolution and join the journey, as Sam Lee says. And I think that's the only way forward, right? Blockchain is here to stay. It gives us a lot of security opportunities, and these raises that young people have done, especially in Lithuania, have been just in the hundreds of millions. That's changing the country. They've never been able to get so much finance, unfortunately, from VCs, equity markets. These small countries like Lithuania, Slovenia, we could name more, just were starved for capital. And now with decentralization and everyone being able to contribute all around the world, smart people, smart kids are empowered. And this is phenomenal. This is why I'm doing it. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us, for supporting the Blockchain Center, for contributing your valuable time. And I think we've just we've run out of time to have any questions or anything, but I think everyone can discuss and talk privately. Thank you very much, everybody.